Alright, good Erev Shabbos, everybody. It's Parshas Pinchas this week. And in Parshas Pinchas, Moses realizes that his days are numbered. And he has to find a successor. Our sages say that he would have liked it to have been his children, but God had another plan. Talmidim Elu Abanim, disciples are children also, and so God appointed Joshua, Yehoshua ben Nun, to be the successor to Moses, to Moshe Rabbeinu. The idea here of being the successor is interesting. That when Moses stopped to pray, he prayed Hashem Elokei Aruchos L'chol Basar. He prayed to the Lord, the God of the spirits of all flesh, to find a new leader for the community. And he said that the people of the Lord should not be Kitzayin Shein Lam Roya. They should not be like sheep, like a flock of sheep without a shepherd. Right after Joshua is investitured with the Spirit to be the new leader, we read that of the laws of the Korban Tamid, the daily burnt sacrifice. And I find a connection between these two paragraphs. There's a story from the Rebbe Zisha. The Heilige Rebbe Zisha. He once put his hand in the fire, and as a matter of reflex, his hand jumped back, as it's wont to do, and he said, "Boy, is like Gashmi is the hand from Zisha." How materialistic, how physical is the hand of Zusha? He referred to himself in the third person. That was considered humble in his culture. And that's a strange story, because we know the Rebbe Zisha was an exceedingly humble man. Why would he say such a thing? Did he think he was on the level of Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, who could put his foot on the burrow of an arod, of a basilisk, and expect for the animal to die and not him? Maybe he was. How's that humble? Maybe we don't understand what it means to be humble. The answer that I have to this is that to be a leader, there's another religion where the founder of the religion said a very beautiful idea. He said, if the holy people in one of the Indian religions, the Sikh religion, the founder, his name was Nanak, they called him Guru Nanak. And he said that if the holy people are hermits and they just live in the mountains and do not interact with the common people, what good are they? The holy people have to live among everybody, and it's a Jewish idea also. It's not to be a hermit. And if someone is a hermit, what good are they if they're too heavenly minded to be any earthly good? Why are they here? God has enough angels in heaven. like Reb Zusha, it's clear that he was a spiritual person. But was he the spirits of all flesh? Was he worthy to be a leader? That's what amazed him. He knew he was spiritual. But was he able to bring that spirituality, bring heaven down to earth? So how do you do that? So it says, Korban Tamid Hasiya Bar Sinai, Olas Tamid Hasiya Bar Sinai. Olas Tamid, a constant burnt offering, but the real meaning of Ola means to be elevated, to go up. Constant elevation, constantly going up, constantly growing. Hasiya Bar Sinai, that which was made at Mount Sinai. To be constantly growing, following the path that we received at Sinai. That's what it's all about. That's how you can be totally spiritual and totally material at the same time. By living the mitzvahs that were given at Sinai and constantly growing. Not saying, oh, I'm not there yet. But you don't give up. Just keep going and going until you get there. Don't give up. Keep growing. I think it was the Ishbitzer who said, Shivchi kamayim libech nechach b'nei Hashem. We're going to read in a few weeks the Eicha, the Book of Lamentations. It says, pour out your heart like water before the presence of the Lord. The Ishbitzer said it means like water. We know Genesis says that the upper waters and lower waters were separated. So how do you pour out your heart like water? Go to the ocean, and you see that the lower waters are always trying to be reunited with the upper waters. The waves, they keep going up, they don't make it, and they fall. They keep going up again, they don't make it, and they fall. But they never give up. And that's what it means to be constantly growing, constantly trying, never giving up. Pour out your heart like water, like the waters of the ocean that never give up, and keep trying to go up. And the thing is, you don't see it, but they're actually going up, and they make it up to the clouds, because a little bit gets evaporated, and a little bit goes a long way. And then they come down and they rain down again, and what happens when the rain falls? Then everything grows. They help others grow. I remember the Pittsburgher Rebbe told me that, are you worried you're going to be influenced by somebody else? The answer is that when you're removing the blood from a piece of meat by salting it, we salt our meat to be kosher because we're not allowed to eat blood, so we salt the meat. He said, what if you're not allowed to mix meat and milk? What if a drop of milk falls in while the meat's being salted? Well, the answer is, according to most opinions, that just as the blood is being drawn away from the meat, so too the milk will be drawn away, and it won't become contaminated. And so as long as you're helping others grow, then you're going to grow also. Don't think you're not good enough. Keep trying, keep believing. Don't give up. Keep growing. That's how you can be totally spiritual and totally physical at the same time, and be worthy to be a leader, and be worthy to teach others and help others. Even if you don't know everything yet, so you keep growing, keep learning, don't give up. I remember hearing a story talking about what does it mean to be truly spiritual, to have true growth. So Sarah Yocheved Rigler is a popular author. I believe she's a speaker also for the women's speaking circuits. She wasn't always orthodox. She spent some time on a ashram. And I'm not saying this to put down the Buddhists or the Hindus or anybody else, because we have by us the same problem. What we're describing here is not about what religion you are, but it's about accomplishing what true spirituality means by bringing heaven down to earth. And I'm sure there are just as many Buddhist people who do accomplish it in their way as there are Jewish people who accomplish it in our way, and there are just as many Jewish people who mess up in our way as Ms. Rigler tells her story as she did in a different tradition when she was trying out something different. And she tells the story that she was sitting and meditating very intensely, and she was about to reach a very lofty goal of hers in her meditations. It reminds me of, there was a TV show in the 90s, The King of the Hill, a cartoon. And I remember one episode, the neighbor, I think his name was Dale, he was an exterminator, and he was describing how he was meditating, and he said, I was one nose hair away from enlightenment. You had to interrupt me. That's the same type of story Sarah Yocheved Rigler tells. That she said, here I was, that she was there, she was just about to reach this level of enlightenment that she was seeking, and someone came in and made some noise and disrupted her, distracted her, and she got extremely, extremely angry. I'll admit I've fallen to that in my own tradition, the Jewish tradition. So I'm not saying there's a superiority of one tradition over another. It's about the outcome that we're talking about more. And I'm not saying there isn't superiority of one tradition over another, but I want to be politically correct. But I'm not saying there is. I want to be respectful and polite. So here she was trying to do something very spiritual, but it was all selfish. Same thing, sometimes we get upset about religious things too, which we shouldn't be getting upset about. Our own personal religious growth. I'm not talking about, there are times to get angry when it's truly for the sake of God. You're talking about saving people's lives and overcoming things that are really dangerous. But not to get angry that ways, I don't know, whatever it is. I don't need to give an example. We have to know when is the time to have truly righteous indignation, and when is it truly righteous, and when is it merely selfish. And too often people are just angry and use religion as an excuse as opposed to actually gaining anything. So Sarah Yocheved Rigler looked back at that story in the ashram and compared it to when she was already a frum lady living in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem, and apparently Cheerios, I don't know now, but in that time Cheerios was very expensive to get in Israel because it had to be imported, and it was very expensive. So she bought Cheerios for for her kids. It was pouring a special treat, and the kid, was then poured a lot of milk and spilled it all over the floor with all the Cheerios, wasted that money. And Sarah Yocheved Rigler said that when she didn't get angry, she realized that she accomplished a state of nirvana, enlightenment that she didn't have in the ashram. I'm using the term colloquially. and she was on a spiritual level. Why? That was a higher level. And that higher spiritual level, that's what we're talking about, the spirits of all flesh. To be totally spiritual and totally physical at the same time. To bring heaven down to earth and how we live our lives. One of my Rebbeim from Yerushalayim, Rabbi Sinclair, he should be well. I remember the first Shabbos Suda I had in Yerushalayim was in his home in Yerushalayim in Arzei Bira, and Rabbi Yaakov Asher Sinclair Zol Gesund Sein. And I saw a video yesterday on Hidabrut, a short video where he said the following. I don't believe this to be a true story, but it's a good story. So he said that there was someone who was a collector of rare Jewish religious literature who had discovered that there was an extremely rare manuscript from one of the Rishonim, one of the medieval commentators, rabbinical authorities, that was the only copy that was known. It was lost, it had never been published, lost for a long time, and a copy of this manuscript was found in the National Museum in Cairo. And this Jew was asking, he was influential and wealthy, and he was asking, how can we have this? How can this be returned to the Jewish people? And so he was, sending a lot of requests to the Egyptian authorities, and it came back with no answer. He was being ignored. So he had connections, he called some congressmen, and they started to put pressure, and then he was calling in Parliament in England, and this manuscript to the Jewish people was priceless. But the Egyptians finally, after a lot of pressure, they managed to put a price on it. Oh, now it's upside down. What's going on here? So they asked for $250,000 to give away this manuscript, and so he himself was able to put in about $200,000. That's what he was able to afford. And he went to other philanthropists, and he was able to get $750,000 that was needed. And this rare manuscript was brought to Jerusalem, where it could finally be studied, and the secrets that are hidden there, and could finally be brought back home and shared with the Jewish people. And so they had it sitting there, and they were just in awe. A few rabbis were there, scholars, and about to finally study this work. And one of them, just ever so slightly, there was a cup of coffee sitting not too far away, and in a styrofoam cup, and a little bit of his arm sleeve just slightly touched it. It would seem like it would be nothing, but fate would have it, it spilled the coffee all over the manuscript, totally destroyed it. All those years of effort and money and everything, all down the drain. And the man who spilled the coffee, you can imagine, how distraught he was. He was crying, very shaking. He couldn't believe what he just did. And the one fellow who put in all the legwork into this turned to the man. He said, "Don't cry. We could get you another coffee." God should have mercy on us. We shouldn't be tested in this way. We should be able to learn and grow and live happy Jewish lives without being tested too much. But let's try to find joy. It says in the Pasuk, Ashrei Ish Asher Tizrenu Kam V'Toras Chlamdenu. Happy is the man that God chastises, and from his Torah he learns. And the tzaddikim interpret that to mean that you can, when you learn a difficult, painful piece of Torah like that, it could be enough that you've already passed the test. Motzei Shabbos, the yard site from my holy Zayd, the Chenger Rav, I'll try to talk a little bit about him. After Shabbos, maybe we'll try to see if we have some batteries in the phone. We'll be able to do something. And the 3 days later, of course, is the yard site from Kodesh Kodashim, from the Yismach Moshe, the ancestor of became the Satmar dynasty today. Patriarch of that Hasidic dynasty, the Rebbe of Il, Yismach Moshe. He lived around the same time. He was obsessed with eschatology. It was the coming of Mashiach and so forth. And with mourning over the Beis HaMikdash, he said that he remembered the Gilgul, his previous Gilgulim. We spoke about that by Korach, and he remembered that another Gilgul he had was in the time of the Chorban Beis HaMikdash. And he didn't say it, but by other tzaddikim they said that he was Yirmiyahu Navi, that he was the prophet Jeremiah in his previous reincarnation. In this anyway, the story goes he only had one son, Yismach Moshe. Lazer Nissen was his son. It was the Rav Drovich. And Lazer Nissen and the Yismach Moshe, they were sitting learning Gemara Tainus. I just made a siyum on Tainus. And near the end of Masechtas Tainus, it says, Kol dor shelo yiniv Beis HaMikdash b'yamav kil nechav b'yamav. Any generation which the temple was not rebuilt in its day is considered as if the temple was destroyed in its day. So the Yismach Moshe was very distraught and depressed by this. And the Lazer Nissen turned to him and said, "Father, did you not teach us that the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, the destruction of the Holy Temple, brought atonement to the people, meaning that God did not take out his anger on flesh and blood, but rather he took out his anger on stone and wood. So he destroyed the temple instead of destroying the people, and the people were forgiven for their sins when the temple was destroyed. So he said, Kol dar shaloi nivnei beis hamikdash b'yamav, any generation where the temple was not rebuilt in their days, Ke'ilu nechrav b'yamav. It's as if it was destroyed in their days. Meaning that as we mourn for the destruction of the temple, you notice, what do we do on Tisha B'Av? The same things we do on Yom Kippur. Tisha B'Av is a day, Gemara in Taanis compares it to Yom Kippur. It says whoever eats on Tisha B'Av is like he's eating on Yom Kippur. Tisha B'Av is a little bit Yom Kippur. Because Kol dar shaloi nivnei beis hamikdash b'yamav, any generation which the temple was not built in its day, Kilo Nachrav b'yamav. It's as if it was destroyed in its day, and we receive the same atonement as we received when the temple was destroyed. That the atonement that we received from the destruction of the temple continues to this day as we continue to commemorate and mourn for the loss of the temple. We receive the forgiveness and the atonement that the destruction of the temple brought. In this way, we shall be worthy that by thinking about these things we should receive that atonement, the peace in our hearts, the peace in our souls. To find that spirituality. We spoke about the Korban Tamid, Olas Tamid, Hasiu Bar Sinai, that constant growth, constantly going up, that was made at Mount Sinai. We should be worthy to experience that, to live it, to grow, constantly grow, to be like the Rebbe Zisha, to be, not just to be spiritual. It's easy enough to be an angel. Sounds difficult, but it's not really that difficult. What's difficult is to live here on earth and to be spiritual. It's easy to just not talk, right? But to talk and to have shmir saloshin and try to be normal. You know, it's a big thing in a lot of the Hasidic communities, especially Babov. It's very important to be normal. Not to be an extremist, not to be outlandish, not to be eccentric, to try very much to be normal. And it's not easy. And for me, it's definitely not easy. But let's try. That's a goal. That's a very lofty goal. It's a very holy and spiritual goal. It's easy to be a weirdo. But how easy is it to be more of Ben Abrios? To overcome your natural awkwardness and to try to fit in, but still to be good. Meaning, not fitting in by giving in to peer pressure and doing bad things. That's not who you really are. But just to be liked just for being good. And to fit in and be liked and appreciated just for being good. And for seeing the potential good in others and the actual good in others. And not to be jealous of that. Not to think I have to be the one who always has to lead the prayer or do some other mitzvah. Could leave it to someone or give it to someone else. You know, someone asked me if they want to be mechaber me to sit on a bezdin or something, and I would love to, and I enjoy it, and I believe it's a mitzvah, but I don't have time. I'm very busy. Baruch Hashem, I'm thankful for that. If I thought of someone else, let them do it. Let them get the mitzvah. So Rebbeinu Shalom should help us. We should be worthy to have all these things in our lives, to learn and to grow. So mitzvahs, to learn Torah every day, to daven every day. You know, a very holy Jew is Maggid Shir. He was writing about how difficult it is for him to. Sometimes he has to go to a minyan where they usually he gets a daven with a minyan that's we're not in any rush. You can be contemplative in your prayer and spend time and be spiritual. But he said this morning he had no choice. He had to go to an early minyan, and they were in a rush. And how uncomfortable it makes him, and how do you deal with it? And I told him, I said, I remember Biala Rebbe Shlita from Borough Park told me. He said, if you don't know how to daven fast, you don't know how to daven slow. There's a lot of depth in that. Do you know what you're doing? And so this younger man asked me, so how do you do that? And I said, my answer is it's very personal. But the way I see it is, for many years I spent a lot of time in contemplative prayer, going to minyanim where you scream and yell and jump up and down, and sometimes I have time. Now I don't have time for that anymore. The way I've grown up a little bit, once in a while you do it, you have time. But still, people, they're in a rush. They want to go home. They want to eat. They want to spend time with their families. And I do too. And I work full time, Baruch Hashem. I love my job. K'nai Nahara, Baruch Hashem. Is there a concert today? I don't know what's it going to be on Shabbos Nachamu. So, we do what we do. And we learn, we do mitzvahs. So now, and I've learned Al Pi Kabbalah, Kavanas, things like that, which I don't like to talk about. And I realize, this being in a rush, sometimes you operate like that, right? And you're in a rush. But you see the kavanas in the siddur, or if you don't have in the siddur, you still know them. And you know other veritalach that you learned, and things like that. Or you just think of the simple parashamilas, just what the words mean. It's interesting when you're praying in a language that you don't really speak. I mean, you know the language, but maybe you don't. We try our best. Do what we're supposed to do, and we say all the words even. doing that, maybe we said it very quickly, but the kavanah was already there because we're already used to this. We've been there before. We've done it. And we're just visiting there again. And so sometimes we do things when we're in a rush. And sometimes we're not in such a rush. And we can take that with us. Shalom should help us. We should be able to make the most out of this, to learn to daven, do mitzvahs. And in this way, I think about what I remember Usher Wade. He's a Gerach Chassid. The Gerach Chassidim, they daven very fast, right? And Reb Usher Zolgazunzain said, it was a tape I heard of his. He said, if you go and you daven and you don't really feel it, but you did it, Now, if you're a person who davens 3 times a day, you can't imagine your day without that. But with that being said, I know I say that a lot, but I notice other people have been saying it too. With that being said, you still have free choice. You did not have to put on the talis and tefillin and say these words. You didn't have to go to minyan. You still used your free choice to make that choice to do these mitzvos. And that's very big. Don't underestimate that. How many people in the world, how many Jews in the world are putting on the talis and tefillin and davening 3 times a day? There are some people with a beard and pace who don't do that. And they make a choice not to. Or they make a choice to. And even the ones who are doing it every day, when you do it, you're making a choice every day to do it. And like the Vilner Gaon taught, let's say you're not so religious and you're listening to me and you made it 37 minutes already. And for some reason you're still listening to Joe Kolakowski, who calls himself the Kablenzer Roof. You're listening to him talking on YouTube for some reason. And that's Min Shemayim. Whoever is predetermined to listen to this, that was decided from heaven. And so you're listening to Joe Kolakowski talk. And isn't that quizzant? So the Vilner Gaon, he was talking to someone who said he's not religious, right? And the man went to eat something, and Vilner Gaon told him, you have to make a bracha on that. And the man said to the Vilner Gaon, he said, you know who I am? You know that's what I have to worry about? That I made a shahakal just now? And the Vilner Gaon said, yes, you're going to have to answer for that shahakal also. It's not like, you get a clean slate, I'm not religious. No, and the thing is, we all do things wrong here and there. I do a lot of things wrong. I do a lot of sins, and I try to be better. And we try to do things right. But we make mistakes. Right away. Do tshuva. Don't wait. Beat the Elul rush, they say, right? Don't wait. Do tshuva now. You can repent right now. As soon as you did something wrong, or even you realize you think about something you did wrong, you klap al chet. Hasham lebugadnu. Slach lanu avinu ki chatanu. Tell God I'm sorry. Admit your sin. Confess your sin before God. Tell God you're sorry, you wish you never did it, and ask God for help. You should not do it again. And you're clean for now. And even if you're going to do it again, at least, like the Tanya said, the story of the boy cried wolf, which Chazal, they say such a thing, that's the punishment of the liar, is that even when he tells the truth, he's not believed. But the thing is, you're not lying. When you say this, you're not lying. You're cleansed now. And then you can start again, and then if it happens again, you're starting with a clean slate. And it's interesting, what the Samarov wrote in the Tshuva, he said, someone was asking him for tikkunim, for a certain bracha, for a certain sin that he did. And Samarov said, we say 3 times a day, and every weekday, Chanun Hamar B'L'Sloyach, Baruch Atah Hashem Chanun Hamar B'L'Sloyach. Blessed art thou, O Lord, the grace who is filled with grace and who is abundant in forgiveness. We have a very forgiving God. If you don't believe that, then you're making a bracha levatala. You're taking God's name in vain. You have to believe that God is gracious, and He's abundant in mercy and in forgiveness, and God will forgive you. And God should forgive all of us for all of our sins, and we should be humble and spiritual and bring godliness here to earth, and do what we're supposed to do. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. Have a very good Shabbos. If this is up before Shabbos, I don't know who or not. I don't know who has time to watch this before Shabbos. Maybe someone's watching on Shabbos. If you're not Jewish, nothing wrong with that. And if you are, there's no real isser. It's just often the chol. But it's better not to, because we don't do it. Because often the chol you're also not supposed to do. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Be well. And like Satmarov said, Rishon hu l'cheshbon avonos. Let's try. Don't try to be mater. Don't try to be more a heter. The opposite. It's a mitzvah to do tshuva. Find things to do tshuva for, and then sternis nasis like kazachias. Your intentional sins are turned into mitzvahs. We shall all be worthy. The Rebbe Melech taught us to daven, to ask God to turn our sins into merits, like we did mitzvahs. Why not? We should be worthy to that. To scholars quite. Please like, share, and subscribe. Come all the best. Take care.